Hey everyone, so with 3.10 and Wave 2 now, it seems like it's going to be released soon, so I wanted to make a video to help go over some of the most important changes. I'm assuming not much will be changed from now until the patch goes live to the PU, but if it does, I'll be sure to update the description to let you guys know of anything major. So I wanted to start off by going over where I think you should spawn in this new patch, since, like any other new patch, you'll have the choice of spawning at Lorville, Area 18, or New Babbage from the menu. Personally, for this patch, I would recommend spawning at New Babbage for a couple of reasons. First, it's one of the two places that has had major changes this patch, and you can go there to check out the new store and new hangars. And secondly, it's a little easier to take off from New Babbage since it doesn't have the landing splines that are present at the other major landing zones, since it doesn't have restricted areas. Also, Wally's Bar over in the Commons is a cool place to go check out the bartenders. So moving on, probably the biggest change for this update is the flight model. Whatever you think of the changes, it's definitely different. Smaller ships aren't that affected, but large ships feel pretty weighty now, and it will take some time to get used to. Also, maneuvering thrusters are weaker in general, so if you're flying above SCM speeds, you're not going to have as much control as you used to. So I'd recommend to take it slow for just a bit to feel out the changes, or you might find yourself hurtling towards a space station and not being able to stop in time. Like I briefly mentioned earlier, another big change this update is the addition of landing and takeoff splines at Lorville and Area 18. So if you're taking off from either of those locations, it might be a bit confusing, but you now have to find this tunnel, and you must take off by going through it. If you don't, you're in for some issues. Here I was able to survive being tossed around and back into the spline, but with bigger ships you might get sent into the surface. And I never like messing with the autopilot in general, it's often quite glitchy. So yeah, be sure to go through these splines when you're taking off or landing at Lorville or Area 18. Another thing to know about taking off is that if your ship has a VTOL mode, you'll probably want to use it. Now the Cutlass I'm using here can take off in either mode, but it does so much faster with VTOL enabled, and some ships won't have the option of using either. So unfortunately, due to the new targeting system, a lot of the binds have been moved around, so I'm going to put up a list of some of the non-combat binds that have been changed if you want to see those, but to switch in and out of VTOL mode, you just have to hit K. So if you're having trouble taking off or landing and your ship has VTOL, make sure you're using it, and once again you just hit K to do so. One last tip I have about landing is just to not use autoland for now. I used to use it just so I could start the animation for getting out of my ship a bit earlier and save some time, but on multiple occasions in the PTU I've had trouble with autoland, so I think it's best to just skip using it for now. I survived in this instance, but other times I've died or fallen through the floor, so unless it shows up in the fixed issues list specifically, I'm going to be avoiding autoland for now. Now moving on to combat, the biggest change here is the new targeting system. So while this system adds functionality, it moves a lot of the old functions around. I was a little surprised at this one at first because I thought the old system was just fine, but this new system of being able to pin multiple targets is going to be very useful for multi-crew gameplay, which is nice considering turrets are much improved in this update as well, so we'll be seeing a lot more of that. So basically the new pinning functionality allows you to remember a few targets, so if you have targets that you want your crew to be shooting at, you can pin those and they'll be shared with them as well. However, a lot of this is subject to change and they've been moving these key bindings around a lot, so be sure to check in the settings just to be sure they haven't changed on us again. I'm going to put most of the notable changes to these bindings up on the screen now, but when I'm in combat, I mainly just use T, which cycles through targets in your view, and instead of relying on 3, which was the old way to cycle through enemy ships and find them, I just use my radar now to point at them. Some other of the more important ones to know are G, which now changes your gimbal modes instead of R, and that countermeasures are now on H and J. The system is a bit complicated for my liking, and I'll probably do a video on it once they get the bindings down and once I'm used to it, but I'm sure the additional functionality will be nice once they get it figured out and a bit more user-friendly. Another important combat change to know is about flying over SCM speed. One of the focuses of this update seems to be getting people to fly slower, so in addition to the reduced thruster strength, there are a few penalties when going over that speed in combat. So the first one is when you exceed the speed, you don't get the fixed weapon assist anymore, which is what they added to balance fixed weapons. Now hopefully you can see it from this footage, my aiming isn't that much worse than when I was going slower, but without that assist active I hit a lot less shots, and it definitely was noticeable to me as I was flying. Now the other one is that you can lock your missiles when going above SCM speeds, but you cannot launch them until you're going at your SCM speed or lower. Unfortunately, I couldn't get my missiles to behave to be able to show this, but if you find your missiles aren't shooting, be sure to check your speed. Okay, and this last one is just a quality of life improvement for people who enjoy hanging out at GrimHEX, or for anyone with really big ships. So GrimHEX now not only has large hangars for things like caterpillars, but it also has one of those mega hangars. This is really nice because now you can use GrimHEX for larger trade runs, and also being able to spawn things like an 890 jump out in space is a lot more convenient than having to take off from atmosphere. So with this new addition and the new racing area in GrimHEX, it now really is a complete landing area, and is one of the areas I'd go to check out when you first get into the update. So hopefully 3.10 gets pushed to live within a few weeks, and we get access to some of the cooler things in this update like racing and the Grey Cat Rock, and I hope this video helps you prepare for that a little bit. Thanks for watching.